Okay, hello everybody. I'm Steve, and I'm joined by several colleagues today. It's been Kelly and I for the last couple of days doing our recaps of the Dev Summit. But I'm joined by Kelly, Michael, and Andrew. And I want to go around the horn real quick and get some first impressions. This is the last day of Dev Summit, so we're going to do a recap of day 3. But before we do that, I'd like to get your impressions overall of the Dev Summit. So Kelly, I want you to again tell us where you work from and your impressions of this year's Dev Summit.
Yep, I'm Kelly Bigley, and I am out of Buena Vista, Colorado. And this year's Dev Summit being virtual has been pretty unique. There's been a lot of perks, I think, and a lot of bummer to miss some of the in-person, festivities like dodgeball and just the gorgeous Palm Springs and the sun and the sunburn. Can't forget missing out on the sunburn, but I think being able to watch these sessions at my own pace, so even if I've missed something that I wanted to catch, or if there was 2 simultaneous sessions, I was able to go back and catch the one that I, didn't sit in live. I can go back and watch the same recording. I think that has been a fantastic bonus to this virtual environment.
Excellent. Yes, I totally agree. Thank you. All right, Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, so Mike Parma, I'm the Senior Water Solutions Architect here at GIS Inc., working out of my home just outside of San Antonio, Texas. This is actually my first Dev Summit. I've been to lots of, the water conferences and the user conferences over the years. I agree with Kelly. There's definitely, kind of missed out on some of the interpersonal, events, around the sessions. But it was nice to see, like Steve, even today, you went to a session in the morning that, I didn't notice, and then you were hitting me up saying, hey, go check it out. And so I was able to, go attend the session a little bit later in the day. So yeah, I definitely like that aspect of it. And of course, having immediate access to the slides too.
And I think you were the one that mentioned that, because someone asked, when are the recordings going to be ready? And you said, now, they're ready now. It's almost immediate that the recordings are out there after the session. So yeah, cool stuff. All right, Andrew, how about you?
Hi, I'm Andrew Ryder. I'm a solutions engineer at GIS Inc., and I'm working out of my home in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Nice sunny now. So this is my first Dev Summit. It's one of my first conferences, so this is quite the experience. There was a lot to digest, but it was, like everybody said, being able to go back and say, what did they say, and kind of take a instant replay, if you will, of the content was pretty cool. I'd say some of the things that was really really cool for me of upcoming Esri is the ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes was a big thing for me. Doing a lot of enterprise deployments. I'm excited to see that that workflow and get in there working. And I've already spoken with a client or two today that had kind of seen that, and they were really excited about it as well. So that's going to be fun to see. And I've had a great time. It's been a great experience trying to navigate it all, and I hope to be able to do it again, maybe in person.
Exactly, and I love your background there. Perfect setting. Perfect setting. All right,
Jack
so with
hi.
that, let me share my screen and let's jump through some slides. I know I took some screenshots and some others did too. Let's talk about day 3 here. So just as a reminder for those who are watching, again, it was all recorded, so you can go back and hit all the sessions again. There's the URL down there. And if you have time to register today before it all closes, you can still go back and view all the sessions as needed. So just like the other 2 days, it started off with a plenary, and I like that about this year and being virtual. They had plenary sessions every morning, which is really a really nice way to highlight certain technologies or certain components of the ArcGIS system, and they could focus on that a little bit more than just what they could do on one plenary during the live event. And today's session was really all about developing and extending ArcGIS Enterprise. And they talked a lot of different ways about that. There's a couple screenshots that I kind of took up that kind of jumped out at me in sort of how Esri is evolving the way and improving and making more options available for us for customizing, extending the whole ecosystem of products there. And I think one thing to note here on this slide was that ArcObjects is still sort of the building blocks for ArcGIS Desktop and ArcGIS Enterprise, but there are some things to consider for moving forward with support with ArcMap, right? We heard that throughout the 3 days. ArcMap has some shelf life to it, but we heard that 10.8x is the last release cycle for that, and they're starting already to move out some of the runtime tools and solutions within Enterprise over the next couple of years. So keep that in mind. But ArcObjects still is that baseline for doing any kind of extending our customizations or things like that within the desktop world. Do you guys see anything different or have anything to add with this slide here?
Not really. Kind of excited to move on to a single platform.
Yep. And they all talked about the ArcGIS Pro SDK for Microsoft.net. It was really interesting to see how you can take this environment and kind of go to the add-ins approach, where I just create add-ins for a desktop. I can manage configurations, how ArcGIS Pro starts up, what's available, what buttons are there, plug into new data sources, and then the getting access to the core host applications. So creating standalone apps for 64-bit environments with the geodatabase and geometry access, which was pretty cool. Some of the demos they showed were pretty neat. And when I first saw the demo, that upper right-hand corner, I thought that was like an ArcGIS Enterprise site or a dashboard on ArcGIS Online, but it's really ArcGIS Pro. It was customized to start up with some basic maps, and then the user clicks on one of them, and off they go with their workflow. So I thought that was kind of neat across the whole scene there. And they talked a lot about automating collaboration across the systems as well there. And I think there was several discussions out there across how to handle departments and organizations and sort of having a hub and spoke environment for how we organize our content, how we share it out through others. I thought that was a neat concept, how they kind of talked to that from a distributed collaboration standpoint. We did a lot with water and utilities here at GIS Inc. So it was neat to kind of see their demonstrations focus on sort of that workflow and how you can share information, have this cross-platform, edit one piece of information, maybe in the water department's view, and the public works view sees that information up and running, so they can share and collaborate across there. Any other comments here around sort of this from your guys' perspective?
Yeah, one thing I'd add into this, I focused the 3 days really on the utility network, right? I mean, there are tons of sessions on that. But that's been a big thing, right? The push for the utility network has been to modernize the technology framework to a services-oriented architecture, right? To meet to follow current IT best practices. And I think that allows, from a utilities perspective, that distributed collaboration, which we've seen so much in the past of database level integrations that simply don't allow for distributed collaboration. Right. So I'm excited to see that in the future here for the utility network and what that means for everybody.
Perfect. Okay, and they also, and I think on Tuesday and Wednesday, I sat through a couple sessions around how ArcGIS Enterprise obviously is going to evolve. In every version, they offer new capabilities and functionality, things like that. And one of those was how to sort of help the migration process from content from one version of the platform to another version of the enterprise environment, or from across our deployment patterns, like from development to staging to prod. And so they're starting to put in at the 10.9 release these migration capabilities via groups, and how we should be creating these groups, and in those groups we organize all of our users and our content and our maps and things like that. And then when needed, we can either manually run through this migration through groups to another development environment or version moving forward, or we can automate that process to help, you know, build something and test it out in dev environment, then push a button and have it move to staging and then to prod, and keep our systems, you know, live with the content and updated with the different versions there, which I thought was kind of cool. You know, we've been asking for that for a while. I think a lot of users have been asking for that support for, you know, migrating and keeping these systems in sync with each other across the board. Okay.
Yeah, I would say, to add to that real quick, that migrating content is one of the big things that I work on, and this is a big game, especially on a micro scale. If you want to maintain a single app through different environments, it's great. But even migrating from a whole organization to a new platform, say you're moving to the cloud, this will greatly enhance that process. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it'll help guide folks into some of the best practices with enterprise, using the groups and the users and the roles and things like that to help set that environment up to make that transition, that migration a little bit smoother moving forward there. I know Kelly posted this, and I thought it was interesting that you know, talking about this concept of DevOps for GIS data, right? Typically, we don't think about that from a developer standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. I remember attending a Dev Summit a few years ago and posing that question to the Esri dev team. You know, where is Esri in the DevOps journey? And, you know, it's easy to think about it, well, where are they internally with their own processes and product development? But really what they're doing now is making DevOps available for consumers of all of the GIS, whether it be your own, you know, we've already been doing DevOps with our code, right? But the whole today was all talking about automation of deployments. Well, that's part of the DevOps. Automating data migration is also now part of DevOps. So now it's not just about code, it's about how can we take our infrastructure and our data and incorporate that into this DevOps environment. And I just super excited.
Yeah, it goes back to Andrew's comment there. It's going to help keep those development patterns in play and in sync and up to date with the right content, which is important. Yeah. Which you mentioned, this automation of deployments, and there was a lot of talk about that today. And I sat through a couple of sessions which highlighted some of those. And Esri has been supporting these already throughout the years, but they're making are giving us more opportunities, more options, more scripting capabilities, and more samples and more tools to make these automations. And this slide sort of highlight and showcase some of those in one of the sessions that I attended about, you know, tools for simple automation. So maybe I need to set up a dev environment. I can use the enterprise builder either on-prem or in the cloud, or leverage some of these cloud-based tools like a cloud builder for Azure or AWS. And I know they talked about supporting Google Cloud Platform here coming up within the next couple of releases. And then from simple to advanced, right? Creating these automations, these deployment automations, either using PowerShell or Chef, again, showing us that through GitHub and through other mechanisms, that they're just giving us these recipes and these scripts that we can then either deploy as they come to us, or we can modify them for our needs and help, you know, with that deployment process. And they're making improvements with that into the 10.9 world, which I thought was exciting. Now, I only grabbed the AWS slides out of this one presentation, but they're doing the same thing for Azure and Google Cloud coming forward. But starting at 10.9, there's going to be deploying to AWS is going to allow me to include native services that Amazon has, like the load balancer, or different data storage types, or different relational database services that are out there. So I can just pick and choose the things that I want to that are native to, in this case, Amazon Web Services, and that cloud formation template will just deploy those and manage those for me. And it goes beyond just the ArcGIS server and portal and the base deployments, but if I'm doing things like with the Geo Event Server or Mission or any of those other server roles out there, cloud formations templates are going to provide that entry level into that platform for me. This was one of those examples where it sort of showed the example of how to deploy this, starting at 10.9, and these cloud formation templates are going to help me get to that endpoint quicker and faster and be able to scale as needed. So maybe I can start off with just the base components, but then I want to add Geo Event or another server role or something else. Then those templates will just be out there ready for me to deploy there. So I thought that was encouraging. And we do a lot of cloud deployments, both in Amazon and Microsoft. This is going to be where I suspect a lot of our solutions engineers will take a little bit closer look at this platform here and this process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'll allow us to get more done and add value into our clients by helping them with other services or issues they might have.
Yeah, I know our internal utility network team that Michael, you kind of head up there. We're talking about that internally. How can we set up these different versions of enterprise and desktop to help our testing purposes, right? Well, I'm going to use some of these tools to help get those up internally.
Yeah, especially with all the version dependencies that you have, with the utility network. This is going to improve our ability to maintain multiple versions of software, multiple environments, one for our own development purposes, but also, for our client projects as well. So this is going to be really cool.
Yep. So Kelly, I think you threw this slide in here. What you have in mind here?
So this is sort of an elaboration on what we saw in the plenary about the layer blending. And
yeah.
So this is a couple of the demos that they did during the blending session today. And, it's kind of hard to really get an understanding of what is the layer blending and how is this different than just some fancy transparency, because, they said that it's definitely not that. The bottom left one is probably the best example of how it's definitely not transparency. So some of the layer blending and effects that you can do are adding things like a drop shadow. So think about being in Photoshop now and some of the effects that you can do on your different layers or elements in your Photoshop document are the things that you can do with layer blending. So the bottom two are actually both representations of this layer blending with the drop shadow in particular. So, I mean, how cool is it to take a single feature in your map and apply a drop shadow to it so that you can make it stand out on your map? Like, whoa, that's so cool. I mean, they also showed another one of blur, which is pretty cool because you could take your base map, which may have your terrain visible on it and high detail, and you can blur it, which, you might think, why would you want to do that? But there's all sorts of styling and artistic reasons why you might want to do that. And I don't know, it's just mind blowing how cool you can get. And so, the cartographers out there are probably just eating this up. And you can actually do some of this, not just in the web, but in Pro as well.
Right.
So that's,
yeah. I think, yesterday, Kelly, you and I were talking about how I think we as a company are not really leveraging or maybe even see the big picture here of all the stuff that this ArcGIS system has to offer. And in these last 3 days, it has really made it clear to me that there's a lot of unique areas that I think we might be missing out on as far as things like cartography and the automation tools and the development capabilities for extending it. There's a lot of things that I think we could even spend a little more time digging a little bit deeper into overall. But yeah, it's just been an amazing 3 days, which sort of brings us to the wrap up. You guys, any last words from anybody about the experience and or anything you want to share before we close up here?
I say, kind of like as we were talking about earlier with Andrew, I mean, it was definitely a bit overwhelming, just the amount of content that comes at you at Dev Summit. And it's going to take me a few days to get with the team and even really kind of start to digest some of this. So I'm excited to be reaching out to the solution engineers on the UN team. But then also, the other developers and whatnot, on other teams, that how does all this come together? Kelly, let's start doing, the layer blending on UN stuff,
Exactly.
Yeah, I think, I agree with that sort of overwhelming feeling. It's always been like that, even when it was in person. But when you're in person, you just got to pick one and go to it. This year being virtual and the fact that we can go back and watch it has almost contributed to more overwhelming, because I can go back and watch it in an hour. And so now I've actually found myself, I want to watch this, I want to watch this, I can do this, let me grab the slides for this, and oh cool, they've shared all of the samples, let me go play with the samples. Like, since when could you go and play with the samples? It's almost live while you're watching the presentation. Like,
exactly.
That's actually cool. That's great. But yeah.
Yeah, a couple of the Python sessions I sat in on, I actually had the notebook that they were running through in the demo open with me, and I was going through it while they were going through it and trying to imagine how I would apply it to whatever problem I'm presented with. But yeah, I mean, that was really cool. And I mean, I have a list probably 30 deep of videos of the non-live content that they have available that I haven't even looked at, and that some of them are really exciting to me. So I'm going to be diving in for quite a while on my own time here, trying to figure this out.
Exactly. I saw
It's a lot of
several
fun.
on-demand ones out there that I want to go see too. So yeah, that's gonna take us into a few weeks, if not months, to kind of get all the content there. And it's gonna be our job here, the ones that at least had some time, to go share that with the other employees at GIS Inc. and our customers, and help them kind of see the vision as well. So I think overall, I give Jim McKinney and his team at Esri a huge thumbs up for this year's Dev Summit, all the content. Yeah, there was a few technical glitches with the live streaming, but I can imagine with so many people hitting it, that was par for the course, but it's all recorded. We always go back. So this is a wrap up. Day 3 had come to a close. We had a great time. No dodgeball, but we'll get that next year. And thank you, Esri, for all the Dev Summit. Thank you guys for joining. Have a good day.
See you guys.